Yeah,
All
so
right, there we go. All right, hello and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Brookline Commission for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. It is Tuesday, April 21st, and it is currently 6:34 p.m. My name is Kevin McKenzie, and I am the Commission's chair. Please know that this meeting is being recorded. We will begin with roll call. Commissioners, when I call your name, please unmute and say here or present. I will just go in order. Jessica.
Present.
Thank you. Kaya.
present.
Thank you. Masu.
Present.
Thank you, Phil.
Present.
Thank you. And Chair is present as well. So before we get to acknowledging our liaisons, we have several with us here tonight. I will just give Masu and Phil a chance to introduce themselves. So Masu Hawk and Phil Steigman have been recently appointed as commissioners, and this is their first meeting. Would either of you like to fight to go first?
I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you, Phil. All right, and just
It's
so what we
great.
did last time was just introduce ourselves, our background, what brought us to the commission, and something that we do for fun.
Yeah, no, great to meet everybody. For those of you who haven't met yet, yeah. So Phil, let's see, I live in Precinct 13. I'm on Quarry Road. My background is youth development, childhood development. I work in national policy to promote the well-being of kids from 0 to 25. Finding ways to sort of translate the research about thriving into the rules that govern local communities. Did a Warren article with Sarah and Alec Leibovitz last year, which passed as a resolution, which said, hey, we could use a strategy for thriving children and youth here in Brookline. So I'd love to be able to continue that work through this commission, 100% behind all of the guiding principles of this work. And just, yeah, happy to be here for fun. Let's see. Diehard Mets fan. It's been a hard year already. Lapsed film buff. Um, I have an 8-year-old at Runkle, so most of my time is spent, parenting and that kind of thing. But yeah, great to meet everybody.
All right, thank you, Phil. And then Masu, you are next.
Yeah, hi, my name is Masu Hawk, and I live in Brookline, Precinct 14. My background is in law. I practiced employment litigation for a number of years. Then I moved into law school administration, and I've done a lot in the field of education over time, mostly on a volunteer basis, but I did run a nonprofit serving middle school youth that was an enrichment program for gifted and talented kids in New Haven. I the what brought me to the commission is that I have been a huge sort of supporter of DEI and inclusion and community relations work, sort of informally and formally my entire life. I counseled HR reps from companies about how to create more welcoming environments. My children, I have 3 children. One is a graduate of Brookline High, and I was very involved on the innovation fund there. And then after that, I have a 17-year-old who's at Windsor, and I have a little guy who's in 5th grade, and I'm newly on the board at the Windsor School, and for the 5th grader at Fessenden, I co-run their Parent Bridges program, which is really about fostering an inclusive community. So that's why I'm here. That's my background. And I guess for fun, I would say I am a crazy avid reader, and I'm finding it harder and harder to fit reading into my schedule, and I'm often falling asleep with my book or my Kindle open. But I've been in book clubs galore and always have great book recs if anybody wants them.
All right, thank you, Masu. And just to note, we do have Alessia here as well, another commissioner. Alessia, can you just say here or present for us for roll
Yeah,
call?
present. Hello, everyone.
Hello. All right, great. All right, so, and then as well, we have Sarah Monktotter, our liaison from the school committee. We have Sasan Zelka, our liaison from the Board of Library Trustees, not library, sorry. And then we have Lloyd Jelenow, who is our liaison from the Office of Diversity, but also our phenomenal support staff who helps make sure these meetings run smoothly. Okay, so that's our first agenda item done. So the next one is our land acknowledgement, which I will read now for us. So as we gather today, let us take a moment to acknowledge the history of this land we call Brookline. This is the unceded land of the Massachusetts people, whose traditions, language, and stewardship continue today through their lineal descendants, the Massachusetts tribe of Punkapoag. Today, we are living on land that was taken by force. By 1641, the colonists in Brookline had allocated to themselves almost all land that had been inhabited by indigenous people. And that was not the only form of theft that occurred. Lives were also stolen. Historical records state that in 1675, during King Philip's War, 7 indigenous men were sold into slavery in the Caribbean by residents of the area we now call Brookline. The 7 men represent part of the early slave trade. Slavery in Brookline continued and grew, but soon those enslaved were African or of African descent. By 1746, enslavers claimed ownership of much of Brookline's land. We acknowledge the theft of land, culture, and lives, and the ensuing enslavement of indigenous and African peoples that occurred here. These early policies set the stage for centuries of systematic racism. As you remember these atrocities, we and the larger town must commit ourselves to address the ongoing inequities that are the result of our history of colonialism and racism. Although we as individuals were not perpetrators of these atrocities, we benefit from these systems, and thus we dedicate ourselves to addressing them today. And I will just give a quick note that I believe that the Land Acknowledgement Statement is currently being worked on by the Indigenous Peoples Day Celebration Committee. And so that might be a future agenda item once they have a draft that's finalized, that we might want them to come and present, just to sort of give us some context on that. And then we could discuss, give them any feedback, answer any questions they might have. But just to flag that for us. And also just to note for attendance, Commissioner Chi-Chi Wu also just arrived. Okay. All right. So then we can move on to our next agenda. Our next agenda item, which is a review of the minutes from last time. And then Lloyd, you sent those minutes out too, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Has anybody had a chance to review those and or have any questions or comments about them?
I reviewed them and have no comments.
Okay,
They're
wonderful.
They're good.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So then would anybody like to make a motion to vote to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes of
All right.
March 26th or something, was it?
Yes, March 26th.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you. All right. So then we'll do a quick roll call vote. So we'll start with Kaya.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Alessia.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Jessica.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Masu.
Yes.
Thank you. Phil.
Yes.
Thank you. And Chi-Chi.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't there.
Totally fine. And that just leaves me, I think. Jessica, did I call on you? Okay, that leaves me and chair votes yes. Okay, next agenda item is a discussion and possible vote on a recommendation to the school committee regarding the civil rights policy draft. We have Dr. Karen Smuckler with us tonight, the interim, sorry, I think no longer interim actually, so congratulations, but the deputy superintendent for the Office of Student Services. Which is exciting to have her not just with us tonight, but in the district more broadly. I did send some resources out in advance of the meeting, including the most current draft of the civil rights policy, and Dr. Schmuckler has some slides for us tonight as well. And we also do have our school committee liaison, Sarah Mogtotter, who can help us out as well. So we'll just start by giving Dr. Schmuckler the chance to introduce herself and present to us, and then we can answer any questions that she might have for us. We can answer any questions. She can answer any of our questions, and then we could entertain a discussion and possible vote to make a recommendation to the school committee.
Sure. Thank you and good evening. It's very nice to be here. Kevin, are you going to share the slides? Do you want?
Lloyd, are you able to share the slides for Dr. Schmuckler?
I don't have them readily, but I can pull them up. You can share your screen though, Karen, if you want to.
Okay, let me.
Okay, perfect.
Is that good?
Yes.
Except it's not on. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that.
There we go. Thank you so much.
There we go. Okay. All right. What is going on here? All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello?
Hi.
Okay, sorry. I
Mhm.
seem to be rejoining. I'm not sure what's going on my end. Okay. So, so I thought I would just do a framing for everybody, just in terms of bringing you up to speed where we are. So the student civil rights policy has been presented to both the policy subcommittee and the current school committee beginning in January of last year. It was a redrafting of the current non-discrimination policy for a number of reasons in terms of some deliberate choices around updating the policy and making it specifically student focused. And as many of you are probably aware, it is become somewhat controversial in terms of language and some of the content within the policy. So I'll just walk you through sort of some of the whys. The initial work was done by the then Deputy Superintendent of Student Services and the OSS team, and the team worked collaboratively with an outside consultant by the name of Becky Schuster in terms of drafting the civil rights policy. So the initial policy, one of the initial goals was really to name it a student civil rights policy, with really the goal of centering students and making sure that it really framed the rights for students in terms of being able to be very clear and very explicit and walking them through the Is everyone still able to see and hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can see and hear you.
Okay, great. I've just lost my screen is, and so it was a very intentional, deliberate choice around civil rights and making sure that the policy was affirmative and that students really knew what rights they had in terms of going into the classroom. It was an improvement to compliance. And so that was about really making sure that Brookline was a welcoming place for all students, families, and staff. And then it was really aimed at best practice in response to feedback from school leaders and families around having a policy that was actually very explicit and very clear. It was also based on a number of recommendations that had come out recently from the Attorney General in Massachusetts. It was updating a gender policy, and it was also making sure that we covered the Crown Act. And it used very intentional language. And so it used language around bias. One of the things that the policy does is we really want to make sure that we're proactive, and that while things might not rise to the level of the law, it's really important that we are being proactive and we're stopping harmful behavior and bias-based behavior in a very proactive way. And so that was a very intentional use of language within the policy. As I said, it's very necessary for the policy to be legally correct. It also needs to be practically clear and have precision. There was a lot of discussion about language being ideological and some of the language in the policy. And one of the things that certainly we presented and our council was also able to present for the policy subcommittee. And certainly both at the state and federal level, schools are required to make sure that they have policies that protect students' civil rights, obviously protect all the community's civil rights, the adults, as well as community members who are part of the Brookline Public Schools. And taking a neutral stance really is not in line with what those expectations are in terms of being very explicit around the protections of protected classes. It's also really important that the policy is clear because we are required to make sure that schools and districts and families and everybody is noticed in terms of what is required by law. And so really being clear is really the best protection for the district and for teachers and of course for our students. And then just in terms of process, policy subcommittee meetings, these have occurred in 2025, and obviously the last one, which you'll see there, was in April of 26. There have been 2 discussions this year's school committee meetings on March the 26th, and then on April, and then it will go, which is actually the first reading of the policy. It will go to the second reading of the policy on the 30th. At the time of the original launch of the policy, it was sent out to all parents and caregivers, and review and feedback from the community was taken and incorporated into the policy. And then it's been reviewed by legal twice through this process. So that's just a short framing of the policy and sort of where we are with it.
All right, Dr. Schmuckler, thank you so much. Before we take questions from commissioners, I just wanted to start to give you the chance to see if you had any questions for us in particular that maybe we could help with before we ask questions of you.
I do not have any questions. And I'm sorry, I've lost my screen and I'm not able to stop sharing. So I'm just trying to
That's okay. Let me see if I can figure
figure out what is going on my
There we
end.
go. I think I figured it out on mine to get rid of the screen share.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, of course. And thank you so much for being with us tonight and for, again, the overview of this process. It sounds like it's been a long one. It hasn't necessarily been an easy one, but hopefully it's been a worthwhile one, and that we have a draft that you feel strongly about, and that, it sounds like has had some good community input as well, which is great. So I will start by opening up to commissioners and liaisons. Liaisons, you're welcome to participate in the discussion. Even though you are not voting members, please feel free to participate in our discussion. If anyone would like to start off, you could just, I think, unmute or raise your silent hand, and I will call on you to keep track of who wants to talk. All right, I see a Zoom hand from Kaya.
So I'm a little confused here. I understand the slides very well, but has the policy been finalized? And if so, I didn't see it in an email. If you sent it.
Yeah, let me put the link. I'll share the link to the latest draft. And this, yeah, I don't think it hasn't been voted on and approved by the school committee yet.
Correct. It's gone to the first reading was last week, and there was some suggestions and recommendations for additional things to be added to it, and it goes to second reading on the 30th. So it has not been finalized. It is still in draft form.
And you said that this current draft has been reviewed by legal twice, yes? Or at least,
yes.
Yeah.
It's been reviewed. So this current draft the first draft was reviewed by a different legal at the time. And then this current draft has also been reviewed by legal again.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Masu, I see you have a hand up too.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Schmuckler. Thank you for being here. This is my first commission meeting. So I have some questions, and they may go to you, or maybe Kevin and Lloyd can assist too. But I guess the first question I have is, obviously, I'm now aware of the fact that this has taken a very long time, and there was controversy over it. I guess my first question is, Dr. Schmuckler, did you think it should come to this body by any chance? I noted that in one of the school committee meetings, there was a discussion about the fact that it came to school committee because this policy subcommittee was at an impasse. And I guess what I'm asking for all of us is, it seems pretty clear by the fact that there is this appointed commission by our town government, and we are the Commission on DEI and Community Relations, that we should have all along either had the ability to give input in the process, or just to support you, actually, Dr. Schmuckler, and the fact that this is a state mandate that we're trying to effectuate for our schools to have this be the most inclusive environment possible and for us to be compliant with the law. So I'm kind of wondering from all of your perspectives, like where does this body fit in, and why is it it seems to me that this is our first sort of review of the policy, which I think seems like it's in great shape, I'd like to say. I am a lawyer. I do think it seems great, and I hope, you know, we can move forward now and move on, but it seems very late in the game.
Yeah, I can just add quickly, Dr. Schmuckler, for context, which is that unfortunately for us, this is the kind of thing that I think has always been something I'd like us to be involved in, and Lloyd can maybe speak to that as well. It does make sense that it's under our purview, given the bylaws and our charge, but our capacity just has not been there, unfortunately, for the past 2 years. And so we've had to put a lot of stuff by the wayside, and stuff like this has definitely been there. But I'm very optimistic now that going forward, since we have a fully staffed commission, that won't be the case anymore. But that's sort of like from the commission chair perspective of why are we only just getting to this now? Because we would go months and months without meeting sometimes. Just
was that then on us that we did not sort of initiate?
It was well.
I'm not trying to at all to place blame, folks. Let me be clear.
Yes, the less diplomatic answer is we are not our own appointing authority and could not determine how many members that we had. And that was definitely a barrier to our ability to fulfill our basic charge for a while.
Got it. Well, so from my perspective, having read our articles and what we're tasked to do as a commission now, I feel like Lloyd and Karen, if there is something that touches on civil rights policy for the town, it would be great if there was some sort of procedural sort of method to notify us and say, hey, this might be something that the commission should look into if it is a directly related matter. I know sometimes we pick and choose warrant articles based on whether or not they will have implications, but this seems clearly in our purview, and it seems like perhaps we could have avoided a lot of back and forth. I don't know. I'm an optimist here. Perhaps we could have avoided a lot of back and forth and a lot of extended time that was spent on this, and the sort of impasse that was in the school committee sub-policy group by getting involved earlier. So is there a procedural trigger that when things are directly related to matters in our purview that happens on the town level? And if not, is there a way to incorporate that request of the town and its subcommittees?
Jessica in the chat just raised a really good point, which was liaisons, and I'll go to Lloyd. And the challenge for our school liaison is, unfortunately, we meet at the same time as the school committee does. But next year they'll be meeting on Wednesdays at 6:30, Sarah mentioned earlier. So even if we wanted to shift our own time, let's just not shift it till Wednesdays.
I'm trying not to answer so that Karen gets a chance to answer, but once Karen speaks, I'd love to jump in too.
So I don't know what's happened sort of historically, but I certainly know, and Sarah, you can also speak to this as well, I don't think at the policy subcommittee level, there really has been much interaction or relationship between the two bodies. You know, it certainly seems to make sense. I mean, the school committee sets policy for the school district. And so certainly I was in Brookline for many, many years before, and there was, I think this is certainly a first for me in terms of really engaging with the commission, which I think is really positive. I think we uphold the same values at the town and at the school level. But I don't know sort of in terms of oversight and overseeing it where there's jurisdiction. But I do think engaging and, having what we're doing tonight is certainly really helpful and valuable.
Great.
I was going to say that, civil rights policy in other towns doesn't tend to be something that's controversial. And so from Karen's point of view, you know, she works in schools, she works with educators, and it's not a controversial policy, especially because it's, you know, we have to follow it by law, right? So it's really not under Karen's purview what the school committee, what happens with the school committee. That's kind of separate from her, right? So what happened, the kind of controversy happened within our body, and Karen was there to sort of make sure that it got done, it followed the law, and it went forward. I think that one of the reasons why you have a school committee is because you want to make sure to have a little bit of input on the schools of what fits into the town. You know, how do our schools run in a way that reflects the values that we all hold together? And so this commission, I think, could be very valuable in that. You know, who is Brookline? What does Brookline want to have? You know, and to have these conversations would be great. But that's the way that the school committee weighs in, and that's the way that this commission could weigh in. It's not like a oversight or an audit of the schools. It's let's, you know, walk hand in hand with you to help you get the work done that you need to get done while informing you on, you know, the values of Brookline so that policies can reflect the values of Brookline. I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And I would imagine I didn't mean to suggest that it was to provide like oversight. I just meant that like it seemed that we given our charge, we could have been involved earlier to prevent some of the sort of back and forth and controversy.
Yes,
I think-
I know you well enough to know that that is not at all where you come at this from.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, one of the things that it sounds like we can do is definitely try to establish a productive working partnership with the subcommittee on policy at school committee as well, to try to help us, you know, when they sense, because it sounds like this has been something that they've reached their own loggerhead on this a while ago, at a time where we didn't have our own capacity. But going forward, when they reach a loggerhead, that might be when we can plug in before it gets to full committee. And then Lloyd, I saw that you had something to say, and then I see Alessia has a head now too.
Yeah, I will let Alicia go because Sarah and Karen already made my points already.
Okay, wonderful. All right, Alessia.
Just very quickly, I don't know if Jessica then want to say something because she mentioned that earlier. Just want to say, I don't know the details of the controversy, but I just want to say to Karen, I read the policy and also seen the presentation before coming here and then yours, as you did it just now. And to me, it seems absolutely all very clear, very sensible, and very representative of what I would love Brookline to stand for and what so far I know this commission to stand for. So thank you for coming here and to, you know, presenting this for us. And, you know, I would just love if we can maybe make a statement saying, hey, great, this is good. But I want to just keep it here now for others to say something.
Thank you, Alessia. And then one thing I can just also quickly add too is I think having watched the 326 meeting, there was some controversy, not just around the content of it, but sort of how it was organized. And I think sometimes people in the community have tried to misrepresent people objecting to this isn't formatted the way I would like it to, being like, I don't like the language it's using as being one and the same. And so I just wanted to shout out Dr. Schmuckler as well for now bringing forth us, right, like a document that really is clearly organized, easy to navigate. And I think that's one of those concerns, right, that the community can give it meaningful input on and that can be addressed. But whether or not we meet civil rights enforcement at a state and federal level through the language used is less of a controversy that I think works, if that makes sense. Thank you, Alessia. Any other commissioners or liaisons have anything they'd like to add? Oh, I just went to full screen by accident. Okay, well, so we could, if so so desired, we could move on to a discussion of it more broadly outside of question and answers. But also as part of that discussion, we did have part of the docket was that we have a possible vote on a recommendation to the school committee regarding the civil rights policy draft. So if any commissioners feel so moved, a motion could be made as well in support of the draft, against the draft, neutral on the draft, in support of the draft, whatever people feel they'd like to make a motion on.
I guess I have one clarifying question. Sorry, I should have jumped in
No,
earlier.
that's totally fine, Phil.
Yeah, just looking at the couple of resources that that were sent to us earlier. One was like sort of we have a positive, definition of like what positive civil rights are versus, sort of freedom from discrimination as a sort of a negative viewpoint. Is that positive definition the 6 bullet points that are on the first page of the draft, joy in learning, excellence in teaching, those kinds of things?
I think those are the, sorry, Dr. Schmuckowitz, something you
Yeah,
want to say.
I mean, those are the values, and that's part of our strategic plan. I think the affirmative part of calling it civil rights versus the current policy is called it's a non-discrimination policy,
Mhm.
which is really about what districts and what schools should not be doing. And so this was just a change of language in terms of making it an affirmative piece in terms of, the rights that we need to uphold. So there was sort of the framing of it as a civil rights policy didn't sit well with everybody. And people felt like it should just be, we could just call it what it had been called, which was, the non-discrimination policy. And as I said, I think the group that first worked on it, and certainly, where the student service is, it was really important, I think, for it to be in the affirmative. But the joy in learning, those are our values, and they're part of our
Okay.
strategic plan. And so it very much matches with that in terms of a value statement.
Is the positive affirmative definition somewhere for us to review, or how do we define that?
So it's very much just, so, the Office of Civil Rights, which is the department of the education which oversees all of the protections in schools, is called the Office of Civil Rights. And so it very much felt like it was aligning with what they do, which was this large umbrella that really looks at all the protections for students. And so that's the affirmative in terms of the difference between calling it a non-discrimination policy, which is what you shouldn't do, versus a civil rights policy, which is what are the civil rights that students have. And it's, I think for some people it's a matter of wordsmithing. You could call it a non-discrimination policy. I think it was very intentional, though, to call it a civil rights policy in terms of the affirmative rights that it upholds.
I think I understand. I mean, but I think we are saying basically like the affirmative civil rights policy is freedom from discrimination. I mean, I would love, and this is my work too, I would love for us to think about what is an affirmative definition of civil rights. And I think it would probably be things like belonging and, that you have agency, your voice is heard, you feel connected to your environment, you feel respected. So if that's a route, that you want to go down, I think we could probably add to that discussion as well, and saying, yeah, the things that mean, freedom from discrimination actually mean civil rights are the things that mean, a flourishing child, and there's research behind that.
And I think you spoke about sort of thriving, but we've done a lot of work in the Brooklyn Public Schools over the last couple of years on belonging in a very intentional, deliberate way. And what is the environment in which students feel like they belong? For any of you who watched the students who gave testimony last week, I mean, students came out because they felt their sense of belonging and what they'd always believed about their school district was being threatened. And so, I think to your point, it very much is about creating an environment where students feel like they belong. And that starts at policy. Our students are smart and engaged and critical thinkers, all of the things that we want them to be. And so, there was concern that it both by, I think, trying to sort of take out some of the language and some of the areas that, the policy was not upholding, both their affirmative rights, but also it was chipping away for students at their sense of belonging and their beliefs and their values that we are a district and a place where all students belong, and that we need to intentionally create environments of belonging for students to thrive.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Smuckler, just on that note real quick, I know that there was a proposal, I believe it was at the last, I forget the date, it was a week ago, so whatever a week ago today was, at the subcommittee meeting for school committee on policy, it was, I think, a different draft of this that a member had proposed, move forth, that wasn't yours, that would have removed things like gender identity and expression from it. And that did not come out of subcommittee, correct?
Correct. The subcommittee haven't taken it up, and the school committee have not taken it up at this point either.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that too, since I saw it still in here, which is nice, but especially because like you said, for those students, so many of them are speaking because of their sense of belonging related to gender identity and expression too, feeling threatened. In part, I'm assuming, by that policy proposal. So it's nice to see that hasn't been advanced by the subcommittee and that it hasn't influenced the final draft, or I should say the current draft, since it might not be final. Would any other commissioners like to ask any questions or discuss anything, or are there any potential motions that commissioners would like to make? That motion could include a motion to recommend that the CDICR votes to support the current draft of the Student Civil Rights Policy as presented to us. If anyone would like to make that motion, as you all know, as chair, I don't make motions.
I would be fine making that
Oh.
motion.
All right, Masu, thank you. So Masu, we have a motion from you to, it's,
To approve the student civil rights and non-discrimination policy as drafted.
right, so we have a motion from Masu, from a commissioner, to support the Student Civil Rights Policy as drafted and presented to us. Is there a second?
I second.
All right,
But sorry, can we, is it possible to amend that more specifically? So we can say that, but we also want to recommend the school committee, right?
Yes, so an add-on,
Yeah, so
that
I
friendly
just want to,
amendment so we support it, but also we encourage the full school committee to vote in favor.
absolutely, that's my
Alright.
amendment.
Yes,
Yeah.
all right, Masu, is that a friendly amendment to you?
That is fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so the current motion as amended friendly is to vote for that CDICR supports the Student Civil Rights Policy as presented to us and encourages the school committee to adopt the policy as written and presented to us. All right, so I'll start with our first motion makers. So Masu,
Kevin,
how do you?
I'm so sorry, Kevin,
sorry,
to
Sarah.
interrupt. You realize that this was a first reading. It's going to go back to subcommittee, go to the school committee for a second reading, and only at that time be passed. Are you sure that you want to recommend it in its first reading?
Whatever the reading it, what is the, let me ask Dr. Schmuckler a question. What version of it would you like us to support?
So this is the current draft. There have been no changes made to it. There have been requests for some additions and changes to be made that we're in process of working on. It's not going to be anything substantive, but we are working on some additional language that has been requested to go into the policy. So which will then be done before the next reading, which is next week, Thursday.
Okay, I see you have a hand.
Yeah, since I haven't looked at the whole thing in its draft form and realized that it could be still amended, I'm a little don't feel comfortable actually endorsing this. I think if we would endorse the concept of that is being raised here of civil rights, student civil rights, and it's more than non-discrimination, and a few of the other things that were on the slides. I think that is fine. I mean, and endorsing this as a step in the right direction, and realizing that it may not be the final thing, the final policy. I don't know if I'm being clear about that, but I'm a little hesitant to have a full-throated approval, although I do approve of what's been written, but I would like to see the final version.
Yes, makes sense. All right, and then Jessica, I see that you have a hand. Thank you, Kaya.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, when is a vote expected? I know you mentioned, but I lost track of the timeline. And is it likely that we would meet again since we're seeking to meet prior to town meeting or not? Because if not, then we should take action on it now.
So my understanding is that the school committee can vote at a second reading to adopt a policy, and I see nodding from Dr. Schmuckler.
Right, so we
So it's
probably won't
possible
meet
that they'll
before
just
that.
decide on the 30th.
Correct.
Dr.
Is there a
Schmuckler,
way?
what language did people ask be added in? Just to help clarify that for us. Sorry, Jen.
There was requests around specifically calling out certain groups, and that language around anti-Semitism be added in. And so we're looking at, there isn't a hierarchy under Title VI, which is the federal law under which, which covers that. But so we're looking to, again, you can't call out a specific group, but making sure that we are, paying attention to all of that. And there's some guidance from OCR that came out in 2024. And so we're looking at that and making sure that we can incorporate some of that into the policy. So that's what's being looked at.
All right, thank you for clarifying that for us. Jessica, what else did you have for us?
No, nothing. I go back to the motion. I was just wondering if there was a way to massage it, and endorsing the current policy, and any amendments that do not significantly, move from the meeting or something like that.
Oh, okay. So thinking that would be the sort of thinking about your amendment to the motion would be a motion for CDICR to vote to support the student civil rights draft as it stands, and a recommendation to the full school committee to adopt it so long as there are not major changes to it that would detract from the spirit of the current draft.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a long motion, but that's correct.
I would be more comfortable at this point if Alessia and Jessica did the motion and the second, because I feel like it is actually not my original motion.
That is okay. Okay. Does that motion feel okay to other people based off of questions and concerns that they had? We can wordsmith the motion together.
To be fair,
how does that motion feel for you also? Does that feel supportive?
Yes, I mean, I think both versions, I appreciate the dilemma in that it isn't a final draft. It's almost very close to a final draft. And so, it does.
I think the key is we want to support you and the policy and your work. And I think also, as Jessica brings a very valid point, that if we don't do so now, we may not have the opportunity to reflect that we are on board with it.
So you do have a motion on the floor. So maybe, Kevin, do you want to go through with the motion as it is?
Well, I could ask. Oh, I guess if I can also ask, I think I just have to ask the original motioner. So Masu, would you be willing to accept Jessica's friendly amendment to your original motion?
Which is, can I hear that restated?
Yes. So your original motion, we added Alessia's friendly amendment, which was vote the CDICR is in support of the civil rights draft, as the civil rights policy as drafted. And then Alessia's friendly amendment was that we recommend the full school committee approve it as well. And then you said, yes, that felt good. And then Jessica's suggestion, which we could take as a friendly amendment, was to add that we endorse it for the full school committee so long as the spirit and meaning of it does not change prior to their vote.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now we don't have to entertain competing motions. Okay. Sorry for the confusion, everybody. I'm going to try to restate that for us one more time before we start voting. So the current motion, as amended friendly twice, it's a very friendly motion, is for CDICR to 1, vote to support the current student civil rights draft as drafted and present it to us tonight, and then 2, endorse it for a full school committee vote to be adopted, so long as the spirit of it does not meaningfully change prior to the time they take it up at their 4:30 meeting. Is there well, with friendly amendments, I guess I have seconds. So it's moved by Masu and then friendly seconded by Alessia and Jessica. Lloyd, am I covered with that? Does that work? Okay, great. So then we can just do vote. So we'll go in order that people appear on my list. So we'll start with Masu. How do you vote?
Yes. Yay.
All right, thank you. Phil, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Alessia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Chi-Chi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Kaya, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, and chair abstains. Okay, there we go. We did it. Thank you for indulging. So one of the other things is I'm going to have to really brush up on my parliamentary procedure heading into our future meetings. We even had to have much amendments or friendly amendment stuff, so I got to beef that up again.
You did that very well.
Thank
all
you,
worked out.
Sarah. Thank you. I know school committee has a lot of it, so I was drawing some inspiration from all of you. All right, so our next agenda item after that, Dr. Schmuckler, first off, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is so appreciated. We are a resource to support you and your team, as well as the school committee at large, too. Okay, so our next item is also our last item before we adjourn tonight due to some schedule confusion, which we'll talk about after we finish this, which is a presentation on warrant Article 17, which would create a new article of the town's general bylaws to prohibit civil immigration enforcement activities on town facilities. And we have two petitioners with us tonight. We have Chi-Chi Wu and Jessica Kiko, who are both commission members. Chi-Chi, I think you are the one presenting to us tonight.
Yes, I am. I'm going to attempt to share a PowerPoint. This did not go so well at the select board meeting, but Jessica swooped in at the last minute and saved me, so she may have to do that again. Thank you, fellow commissioners, for having this public hearing on warrant Article 17. In addition to Jessica, the other co-petitioners are Alec Lebowitz, Amy Newell, Marissa Vogt, Scott Ananian. Did I get everyone, Jessica? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. So
Do you want me to screen share, Chi-Chi? Is that better? Oh, no, you got it.
I think I managed to do it this time. So warrant Article 17 would amend the town bylaws to institute a prohibition against civil immigration enforcement activities on town property. As a quick background, Brookline is a town with a lot of immigrants. 1/3 of our residents are immigrants. I count myself among them. That's the second highest percentage after Everett, Massachusetts, according to the Brookline Community Foundation. And so the issue of the federal government's overreaching, abusive immigration enforcement this past year and 5 months is very relevant to Brookline because many of our community members could be affected by it. I probably don't need to tell you about all of the horrifying things that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, has committed during these past months, including, kidnapping people off the streets, abusing both immigrants as well as legal observers and peaceful protesters, leading to the deaths of, among other folks, Alex Preddy, Renee Good, as well as many other immigrants who have been in ICE detention. Sending armies of ICE officers to Minnesota, Chicago, and Portland in these surges that terrorized entire communities, shut businesses down. People couldn't go to work. It was a terrible time for all of these cities. And even though Massachusetts has not seen a surge in the Boston area, we have numerous examples of abusive ICE detainment, such as the Tufts PhD student who was detained based upon her political speech, minors and 18-year-olds detained in horrifying conditions, the vast majority of folks having no criminal records. And of course, given that the Trump administration has targeted blue cities such as Boston, we could be the target of a surge at any point. And so, here in Brookline, we wanted to think about how to protect our immigrant residents. And one thing we thought about was prohibition against ICE use of town properties, such as schools, libraries, and town hall, and not committing immigration enforcement in there. So there are precedents for these bans on immigration enforcement on town or city or state-owned property. Boston, Newton, Cambridge, Somerville, Chelsea, and Lynn have instituted them via executive order. The governor has signed an executive order banning ICE enforcement on state property. And then in February 10th, 2026, the select board issued a proclamation prohibiting ICE activity on town property. So we decided to bring this bylaw, which is essentially codifying the select board proclamation. This idea came about because during the conversation about the select board's proclamation, someone said, well, how will we enforce this? We will go to court and seek if ICE violates this proclamation, we'll go to court and seek an injunction of this ordinance. And when I heard the word ordinance, I was like, well, a proclamation is not an ordinance, but a bylaw is an ordinance. And so the idea would be to take the select board's proclamation and put it in the bylaws. During the process of being before select board, before advisory committee, there have been several changes from the select board's proclamation, which are shown here in underline. These are additions. So a concern was raised that town facilities could technically include streets and roads, and we really can't prohibit ICE from being on streets and roads. So we added that provision. Someone suggested using the word federal before civil immigration enforcement. That's really not a substantive change, but we did add that. So that was paragraph 1, basically prohibiting staging, mobilizing, or assembling equipment or personnel for purposes of ICE enforcement. Paragraph 2 of the proclamation and paragraph 2 of our warrant article prohibits the activity of civil immigration enforcement in non-public spaces of public buildings. Originally, the proclamation had prohibited civil immigration officials, but then folks raised the concern that prohibiting a class of individuals was probably trickier than an activity. So that was changed to the activity. The second sentence of the proclamation, paragraph 2, we got all sorts of pushback and concerns about it, reaffirming that public buildings are supposed to be for their purpose of serving the public and not for immigration enforcement. But town council raised some concerns, advisory and select board raised some concerns, even though it was their language. So we struck that. And then paragraph 3. So we met with the police department after we filed this article, and they expressed concerns about having to enforce it. They were very concerned that it would put their officers in a difficult position to have to interfere with civil immigration authorities and get pressure to arrest ICE officials. In the proclamation, there had been a paragraph about enforcement of the proclamation. We attempted to put that in the warrant article. The moderator said the reproducing it word for word would not be in scope, so we ended up tweaking it and basically saying that violations of this bylaw would be civil in nature, would be enforced by notifying the town administrator, and would not be subject to criminal penalties under the bylaws. And this was all to respond to the police department's concerns about having to enforce this. Even with these changes, the police department still not happy about this. And I have not read, but I have not looked at what the chair forwarded earlier from the police department, but if it's anything like what they forwarded to advisory committee, they're still expressing concerns. To be honest, I don't know why, now that we've made it
Just
civil.
sorry, Chi-Chi, just the date on that letter is March 31st.
Okay,
So
so
it
it's
is- I
probably
don't-
the same.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't expect it to be a new one that reflects the amendments made to alleviate their concerns.
Oh, the police department has, I believe, sent something more recent to the advisory committee.
They did, but it was by email, Chi-Chi, not a formal letter, but it doesn't say anything new.
Okay. Yeah, so even after these changes, we have an email saying that they're not satisfied. The select board, however, is satisfied and voted favorable action on this. And just to reiterate why we did this, even with the proclamation, we think it's more enforceable to be a bylaw than a proclamation. We did get an email from town council saying they don't think there's a difference. I guess we would beg to differ. A bylaw is like a law and a proclamation is like an executive order. And town meeting is a legislative body. So, and also more importantly, it gives town meeting a say. If there was ever an attempt to reverse this position, this would allow town meeting a say in whether or not it gets reversed. So that is our presentation about warrant Article 17. I'm going to stop sharing and see if folks have questions or we
Great.
want to have a
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you, Chi-Chi. I'll just start off just to super clarify. I think I followed it, but so the main benefit of doing it by bylaw versus proclamation is a proclamation is just rescinded by a vote of the select board. A bylaw can only be changed by a vote of town meeting.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so town council didn't see a difference between, like, in terms of legality and enforceability, town council didn't see a difference between the two.
Did not see a difference in terms of like going to court and getting injunction.
Got it. Okay, but so
Yeah.
that's helpful clarification. Thank you. But
Yeah.
the difference from your perspective, which I understand, is that it's that how do you reverse it? And I think that makes
Well,
sense.
yes, that's one big difference. I personally think a bylaw is probably more enforceable than a proclamation. I know on the federal level, oftentimes there's questions about whether a regulation is binding, or whether an agency had sufficient authority, an agency being part of the executive, whereas if it's an act of Congress, there's no question.
Got
So.
it. Thank you.
But that's just me.
Thank you. All right,
Jessica-
Jessica, I see your Zoom hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that town council's office actually said, in general, ordinances and bylaws carry more weight than executive orders and proclamations, right? And then went on
Yeah.
to say that in practice, they think that they could, enforce the proclamation in the same way. But I think the first statement deserves not to be overlooked.
All right, that's helpful context. Thank you. All right, other commissioners, do any of you have, and liaisons as well, do you have anything that you'd like to ask or share with the group? All right, Masu, I see your Zoom hand.
I just had a question, which is, it seems, Kevin, the last thing you sent us from the Brookline Police Department was an objection to language that it seems like Chi-Chi was removed based on what you said, which was the access to public buildings remains solely to provide specific services. Was that removed then?
Yeah, that was removed. Town council had issues with that language. We tried to change it to satisfy them. When we did that, advisory said, well, actually, it could be interpreted in a way to undermine the prohibition against ICE activity in non-public spaces and public buildings. We had intended it to apply to public spaces and public buildings, but then you start getting into the issues. Well, if anybody can be in a public building,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like you've addressed it though by taking it out, and
Mhm.
that seemed to be the main substance of their concern. So I was just trying to clarify that's been addressed.
That concern has been addressed. As we said, there have been subsequent emails to advisory, which I guess is not before you. I mean, I'm happy to.
Yeah, this is what was
copy
shared with
paste
me
them.
by our liaison earlier today. So I don't have
Yeah.
any of those advisory communications from the
I mean,
department.
I'm happy to share them. And then, sort of orally in select board hearings, they've continued to express concerns. I mean, honestly, I don't think they want this to be a bylaw at all.
I mean, to be more specific, the concern they express is that they point to state law that says a willful violation of a bylaw, willful violation, meaning like about it and you intend to violate it, is a potentially arrestable offense. And so, that's the concern. But of course, this bylaw.
So, sorry, Jessica, just to clarify from that, is the objection from the police department that they don't want to have to arrest ICE agents?
Right, which of course they don't have to, because this bylaw says it's only enforceable civilly. And of course, they have prosecutorial discretion and they can just choose as a matter of policy that,
And also you have to knowingly violate a bylaw in order for that to apply. Okay.
Which, ICE isn't going to read up on our local bylaws before showing up. So I think, as Chichi has said, we've really listened to the concerns, try our best to address them. Everyone else thinks that they're sufficiently addressed, or everyone else so far who's taken a position.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. All right, Alessia, I see your Zoom hand.
Yeah, so just a clarification on this enforcement then. So fundamentally, this is just a kind of, is just a statement which has some kind of policy, backdrop to it, which clarifies what the position of Brookline is in relation to the utilization of ICE agents, public spaces, variously described, which in itself will be a civil violation. And what are we? I just want to understand. Apart from that, what does it allow us to do? It's just that, because if that happens, can we call the police? The police is saying, yeah, we won't come. This is not a violation of a law. Is like, what is the enforcement possibility here? What does it mean in relation to the actual conduct if something like that happens in Brookline? Just want to understand how that kind of falls if this was a reality.
So because the violation of the bylaw would be civil in nature, criminal penalties would not be possible. There are civil penalties in the bylaws. So there's a civil penalty of $50 for a violation of a bylaw. Also, there's the potential to seek an injunction. So when someone violates a law, even if it's civil, you can always go to a court and ask the court to tell them not to do it again. Now,
okay, yeah.
Is it an effective tool to stop ICE activity at the moment? No.
Okay.
Could they violate that injunction? Yes. However, in civil enforcement, like when you have regulatory agencies, it is not unusual to go after bad actors and get a settlement or get an injunction that just tells them not to violate the law again.
Yeah.
And then when they violate it again, now you have something you can seek contempt for violation of a court order. So,
Okay. No, I'm okay.
Yes.
I get it. So for what it is, I thank you for having put this together, and I'm glad that you tried to make it a little bit more solid than the proclamation element, which, as we said, does have a value, but this has more of a value if it becomes by law. And thank you for all the amendments that you made based on the conversation from all these various bodies. It makes sense to me. I can see that it's just an important statement and an important policy, and it's good to have it rather than not having it. Let's put it this way. So thank you. Just wanted to.
Thank you. All right, and just to read for the record, Chichi posted an excerpt from the email that the police department sent to advisory committee, which states, "I do appreciate the petitioner's attempt to address our concerns. The issue, though, is that it's still a bylaw and therefore it would still fall under MGL chapter 272, symbol I can't pronounce, 59, making it arrestable. Of course, there's discretion, but I worry about even having that option available because I think it invites confusion when this political climate changes. and also leaves it open for public expectations to be set for more aggressive enforcement in the future. So that was additional context from the department that we did not have in that letter that was shared with me earlier, that I shared with all of you.
Thank you. I think
course.
that was very helpful. It helps actually for me because it shows that actually this has much more traction that, you know, it seems to have, you know what I mean, just by itself. So thank you. That clarifies matters even more for me.
All right, wonderful. All right, any other commissioners? Do any of you have any questions or comments? And as well as liaisons are welcome to share as well anything else that they have. Okay, seeing none, the chair, this one is a public hearing. The last one was not a public hearing. So, hold on, let me go get my little thing. This is a public hearing. The chair will now open public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand or come off of mute. Just to note, there are currently 10 attendees. All attendees are commissioners or liaisons. Given that there are no members of the public present, the chair will now close public comment for this hearing. And we can now entertain a possible vote. So the chair can now accept a motion on warrant Article 17. Is there a motion for the commission to support support favorable action on warrant Article 17?
Can I make the motion or does someone else have to make
Sure,
it?
why not? You're a commissioner, you got full
I
rights.
was really hoping someone else would step up, but go for it, Chi-Chi. You make it, I'll second.
I can do it.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a second, but Kaya said she'll do it. So Kaya, you have the honor.
So I move that we vote favorable action on warrant Article 17 about civil immigration enforcement on town property, as it is currently written, and any further changes that the petitioners would like to make. I don't know if that's legal to do that, but
That makes sense. I think we've done similar things before. Lloyd, does that check out?
It's a little bit squishy here.
Okay, so should we just say we support warrant Article 7? We encourage favorable action on warrant Article 17.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, that's the motion, just for the commission to support favorable action on warrant
Okay,
Article
so I
17.
second that.
Okay, and I have a second from Alessia. Okay, so I'll start with the easy votes, which are Kaya
Yes.
and Alessia.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Chi-Chi.
Yes.
Thank you, Masu.
Yes.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yes.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioners that are here? I don't think so. Okay, and chair abstains. Okay, so that is our last agenda item before we adjourn. I'll just note that for both of these items, I will write up a report to share with respective bodies. So for our discussion and vote on a recommendation to the school committee, I will send that to the full school committee, as well as the superintendent. And for warrant Article 17, I will write up a recommendation for town meeting to be included in the combined reports. And in that, I will speak to the spirit of what Kaya was saying, which was that the commission is supportive of the petitioners in their efforts on this. So if that requires any future amendments, we can clarify that in that language there too. The commissioners felt it was important to support the petitioners in any other changes they feel they need to make, should they feel they need to make any. Before we go, we did have, again, some confusion, and I apologize for that, about what was on the agenda for tonight for public hearings. We are still interested in hearing warrant Article 12, which is the one about public records requests. The co-petitioners of that warrant article are also on warrant Article 24, which is about email use by boards and commissions. Given that our data privacy ones are no longer being moved, we might be interested in having both of those. Since we have more time, hypothetically. And then warrant Article 25, which also fell off of our agenda, but is related to warrant Article 17. We also want to have a hearing for. So before we go, Lloyd, I can't remember, did I propose a time earlier to you?
No, you did not.
Okay, would people be able to meet, would commissioners be able to meet? We need 5 of the 9 of us for quorum at this same time a week from today. So Tuesday, the 28th, 6:30.
No, I'm out of the country all of next week and not
Alright.
available.
So Jessica is a no. Okay, are there any other no's?
I'm a no too.
Phil is a no and Masu's a no. Okay, that's
Yeah,
not
I'm a
looking
no.
optimistic. Okay, so that one wouldn't work. I'm blanking on when the combined reports close. We just have to get it in before then. So Lloyd, why don't you and I touch base and we can send out a poll like we did last time for commissioners? Does that make sense?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, and then I will get clarity on when the combined reports close, because I would like to do it before that, so that we don't have to do it as a supplement, but if we have to do it as a supplement, it is what it is. I'll just make sure that our reports are posted to the TMMA listserv, if we're doing it as a supplement, since it won't be in the first book. Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight, everybody. It is great to have you out with us, and we will be in touch. Just a quick note, I have to also brush up on our May times. We like to meet the 3rd Thursday of the month, but we are running into town meeting season in May. So May and November, that third Thursday becomes a bit tricky, since town meeting will often meet on Thursdays, but I will be in touch about that as well.
Kevin, the 3rd Thursday of May is the week before town meeting begins.
Great, so we're good to go on the 21st.
I'm sure
Thank
that's
you.
good news for everyone.
It is. Well, it is for me, because it means you don't have to try to find another time. So we only have to try to find it one more time that we can all meet, which is for our second round of public hearings.
And thank you everyone for the shortest public hearing on warrant Article 17 we've had to date.
We are happy to provide it for you, and hopefully we can do the same for 25.
Shortest and only one night. We were before
Yeah.
select board.
Oh my goodness. All right.
And
Well, did they at
advisory-
least let you do 25 and 17 together, or did they make
Yeah,
them
They
separate?
did. They did them
Okay.
together
That's nice at
after
least.
10 p.m.
Is 25 the quote unquote more controversial of the two?
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful for us to know heading into the next one. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your night. Lloyd, could you stay on for like a quick 1 or 2 minutes just so we can chat about the poll, and then there we go. That's that. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, Lloyd, do you think poll could go out tomorrow, possibly, for options?
Yeah.
Okay, let me find out. Let me see if I can find out when the combined reports close, because I would like to get it in before then. But if we can't, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Okay, great. I will try to do that tonight. Try to find out when combined reports close tonight, and I'll just, do you want me to email or text you? What's better for you?
You can text me.
Okay, I'll just text you when the combined reports close. Okay, thank you so much, Lloyd. Have a great night.
You too. Take care. Great
A
meeting. Kevin.
successful hearing,
Yes,
a
it was
successful
good.
meeting. I'm
Yes.
happy that we have a bridge to the school department through Dr. Schmuckler.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, to
Yes.
reestablish that. So,
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
again, like Masu had a very fair question, right? Which was, where were we in this? And it's like, we were kind of non-existent, but now we can be.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Lloyd. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.